Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another in our live marketing plan Q&A sessions here on Monday, May 24th, 2010. We've got a bunch of questions pre-submitted that we have, and this is one that's actually from last week, and I tried to get a hold of the person asking this for a little more detail. And quite often when you ask your questions, they are a little broad, so I have to sometimes interpret and see what it is you're actually you're thinking. But anyway, this question was, how do you balance nonprofits with retail, and then how does the Goodwill do it? So I'm assuming the person who is asking this question maybe has a nonprofit and kind of wonders how Goodwill does it. And really, the way Goodwill does it is Goodwill has, first of all, a mission. And I just grabbed this right off of the Goodwill website. Goodwill Industries International enhances the dignity and quality of life of individuals, families, and communities by eliminating barriers to opportunity and helping people in need reach their fullest potential through the power of work. Now, you and I may think of Goodwill as a place to go and buy some clothing, you know, relatively inexpensive. People donate, or maybe you donate your clothing there and you can get a tax write-off for it. But there's really a whole mission that's behind the Goodwill deal. And I just love some of these statistics that came off the Goodwill website. This kind of gives you a glimpse into really the depth of really what Goodwill offers. People served through employment and training programs, 1.9 million people. So Goodwill is putting 1.9 million people actively to work through their programs. And part of that is their workforce development services. They provide 20 million people with development services. People who earned a job with Goodwill, over 155,000. That's people they help get jobs, because what they do is they try to bring people in and train them and then get them ready for the workforce. And then the estimated total earnings of people who earned a job with Goodwill or Goodwill's help, $2.5 billion. So, maybe we don't know those numbers and think about those when we go and go to the Goodwill or when we take our clothes and donate there. But there's really a whole mission behind this organization. Let's look at some other numbers. Here's just some of what they call their results. Personal and family support services provided to 7.5 million people. Total revenue generated by Goodwill organizations, 3.7 billion. Total revenue spent directly on programs, 84%. Now that's a great statistic there. 84% of all the revenue they bring in, and they have several revenue streams. We're going to talk about that in a moment. 84% of it goes right into their programs so that they keep their administrative cost relatively low. Total number of donors, including repeat donors, 66 million people donate to the Goodwill in one way or another, either through clothing or through financial support. And they have over 2,400 retail stores. Quite an impressive thing. So we're still getting onto this thing about how Goodwill does it from a marketing perspective. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But let's take a look at their revenue sources. And retail sales, $2.42 billion in 2009. Industrial and service contract work, $596 million. They receive individual, corporate, and foundation support for their mission projects and services, $71.6 million. Government support for their services, $444 million, and other revenue, $37 million. So you're going to see there that they've got quite a diverse source of revenue streams, and that's really a good thing for any kind of quote-unquote business. And again, we're talking about nonprofit. And that gets back to our question: how do you balance a nonprofit with a retail environment like this, where there's merchandise changing hands? They've got to merchandise it, market it, they've got to sell it, and they've got to hire people to run it. So, but here's what I kind of came up with on this, and I hope this is the idea that the person asking this question was really getting at. But really, the Goodwill, their system and their plan, and we could even say their marketing plan, aligns with their mission. And when we talk about putting a marketing plan together and setting up goals for a marketing plan, there's really two types of goals. You have quantitative and qualitative. And quantitative are simply things like, we want to reach so many people or bring in so much revenue. But the qualitative piece, this really illustrates this well, is when a company or a nonprofit in this sense has a mission, the cause behind what they're doing, and they have those goals as well. So I'm sure I don't have access to their detailed plan, but I'm sure they have certain benchmarks for qualitative goals as well. So that's one of the ways I'm sure they balance it. And, people sometimes say, well, nonprofits, it's kind of unfair competition because, they don't have to pay certain taxes on things. But really, in some ways, nonprofits do operate like a regular retail business. I mean, they've got to compete with a regular store, in this sense, clothing store. But they compete by having lower prices. And, the law of supply and demand, you've got a high supply of used kind of merchandise. You've got a high demand from a sector of the economy that needs low-priced clothing. So there we have, they've got of course, companies like Target and Walmart say they have low prices as well. So, I mean, you've got to be able to go into Goodwill and get it for less than you can at Kmart or Target. So, I mean, there's some competitive things that they've got to consider, and that's some of the balancing act. But, at the end of the year, they don't really have a profit that they are putting into a bank and paying shareholders. Their profits really are going back into their mission and their ministry, which is really helping people get gainfully employed, and then also helping people that can't afford higher priced clothing have access to some clothing at a reasonable price. Until next time, this is John Hunt from MarketingPlanGuide.com saying so long, and I will see you or hear from you soon.